What's up, guys? Long time no chat. So I have been away doing and learning a ton of things. But you know what? I'll talk to you about that in this upcoming video. So it's been about a month, and over the past few weeks, I've been getting a lot of messages about I keep getting overlooked at work. They never notice me. What can I do? They promoted that other guy, and he's only been here for 6 months. What am I doing wrong? And the answer to all that isn't always quite that simple. So I'm going to go over some things that I've learned over the years that have personally worked out for me. Early in my career, I was super quiet. I was a computer guy, so I just like to sit back, work on my projects, get my work done, not really talk a lot. But then I ended up becoming a security guard in 2008 due to the way the world was. And I looked the part. I'm 6'2", I got a little muscle on me, I got a deep voice. And one of the things that I had to do was talk about how I was helping my store prevent theft. Essentially, I needed to learn how to communicate what we were doing to get great results and then present it whenever the big bosses came in. But essentially for me, being a quiet computer guy, I really just had to learn how to communicate. And after a while, I really started to have some great success. And so I was like, you know what? I want to move forward in my career. I want to get into management. But one of my mentors told me, John, you do great work, but they're never going to take notice of you unless you start making some noise. And what he was telling me was that every time there was a big visit, the DM comes in, the vice president comes in, a director comes in, I needed to be very vocal about how we were getting the results we were getting and how I played a part in it. On paper, everything looked great. The stats were awesome. The dashboard was clear. But how and why? What were we doing as a team? And what was my role in helping achieve those results? And that's what I really needed to emphasize during these visits. If you want to get noticed at work, you need to get vocal. Advocate for yourself. If you know you're the best at something in your company or your store, when it comes time for your yearly vocal review, speak to it. I remember in my second or third year as a security guard, my boss was probably joking, but she said, "So John, how do you think you did?" And I'm gonna be honest, your boy went a little extra. I had printed out all the little accomplishments that we had gotten at the time. I took note of every single rating my DM would give me when they visited. I kept track of how our strength numbers were consistently dropping month after month. And I even recorded our inventory numbers. Now keep in mind, I'm not in management at this time. I'm still just a part-time security guard looking to move forward. So I went extra. But the important thing to remember is also not to get cocky. When I would speak, I rarely ever took any credit for myself, and today I still don't. Instead, I would really drive the team message of, because we did this and that, we passed inventory. What we did as a team was able to get us this great score. What we did won us Store of the Year. If you're just focused on you, it's not a great reflection of you being a team player, but more importantly, being a team leader. Because again, you're aiming for a promotion, right? So how are you impacting others? And you can take that how you want. Over my career, I've heard a lot of, John, you need to be more, I did this and I did that. I don't really see it that way. I think if you really play as a team and you focus and vocalize that, it's going to go even further than your own personal achievements. Now, I'm no Patriots fan. Go Buffalo. But Tom Brady is easily the greatest quarterback of all time, at least from a winning standpoint. But you know what? He didn't do it alone. So I strongly believe you need to vocalize your achievements to your leaders and recognize your team for the roles they played in the success as well. Be very calculated, but also be very vocal. If your boss is working on something and you have the expertise or the skills that you can help with it, volunteer. The DM comes in and you're a department head or a full-timer. Well, you know what? Go out of your way to say hello. Ask your manager if you can learn from them and walk the floor as they evaluate your store. And when they get over to your area, be bold and speak proudly about it. And an added bonus, if you're already a floor manager or a key carrier, make yourself stand out. Ask your manager the next time the DM comes in if you can personally lead the floor walk. That DM is going to be so impressed, they're going to ask your manager, what was going on there? Why did John ask to lead? What does he do? And again, going out of your way to do tasks that really aren't part of your work but will help your store or your boss tremendously really speaks volumes. When you do your work in silence, your immediate manager might notice, which is cool. It's great. You see them all the time. You work with them in the store. But oftentimes, the store manager needs to get approval from their boss in order to promote somebody to a management position anyways. Because it's a lot of responsibility, You're controlling keys, you're leading a team, people are looking to you for direction. It is a lot of responsibility. So oftentimes you might think, man, he overlooked me. Why didn't I get that spot? Well, you're being silent, not vocal. They don't know what you're capable of, and you didn't put yourself out there. If your DM just sees your area always looks great, but doesn't have any idea who you are because you're silent, and when they come in, you try to disappear. I'm gonna go on break. I'm gonna go on lunch. I'll come back after it's over. Well, they're probably going to recommend that your manager promotes somebody who's already caught their eye. So don't just perform, get loud, get vocal, talk about it. According to LinkedIn, communication is the number one thing that leads to promotion. Okay, so you're like, yeah, that makes sense, but what else can I do? Well, have you ever heard the term, knowledge is power? Build up your skills. When I was aiming for promotion, I tried to learn everything they would let me learn. We're timed on cashiering and transaction speed. Okay, how do I get to the top of that list? We need to re-snake this section of the store. I'm on it. There's an extra truck arriving on Saturday, which means we gotta work 6 days. Shoot, sign me up. Not only be hungry, but be eager. The more you know, the more valuable you become to your company. I remember I had one rock star on my team, and when I had first started at the store, she was a fitting room attendant. But I noticed that she did that particular job very well. And it might not seem like a lot when you're in the fitting room, but there's so many little intricate pieces to actually getting it right. You have to remember flows, you have to make sure the sizes are right, you have to make sure the sections are right. There's a lot you need to know to actually get it right for putting merchandise back on the floor, because sizing is something that we're actually judged off of. And if merchandise is in the wrong area, that's a problem. But a fitting room attendant that can get it perfect every single time, oh yeah, that's gold. And that same fitting room attendant later on became my full-timer inside of women's apparel. And again, she did it perfectly every single time. One day we got super swamped during the holiday season, and I was like, this is just frustrating. It's long lines. I need help. I've got call outs. And she was like, John, I can cashier. And I was like, you can what now? Because she worked there before I got there. And I had no idea she knew how to cashier. But she's like, yeah, I got this. And again, her work was off the charts. I was like, this girl. And we had worked together for years, even before I had become the store manager. And I had never seen her on the register. But when she got on there, she killed it. I was like, dang, this girl really knows all the stuff. And when all the cards finally lined up and I had the chance to promote her to a management position, best believe I spoke super highly about her to my DM, and then I approached her with the opportunity. When you take the time to develop on every single aspect of a store or a company, you may not become an expert, but what you're showing leadership is that you have the want and the know-how to not only learn more, but to execute at a high level and to do more than what your job calls for. And so you guys might have noticed I've been gone for a few weeks. I think it's actually been 1 month. Typically on Saturdays, it's my day to shoot, edit, and create content. But on Saturdays, I've actually been developing a new skill. In my job as a sales manager, I sell IT support. And that means sometimes my company works on office moves and laying conduit and such. Well, on Saturdays, I've been learning well beyond just the computer aspect of the job. Beyond the software and just speaking to tech, I've actually been learning how to lay conduit and pull wire. Me and my brother have taken on this massive project, and in that time frame, I've learned about cutting conduit, junction boxes, cabling, and using electric saws, drills, and how to measure for this project. And we're nearing the end of this project, but you know what? It's been pretty darn great. And the reason for that is because it helps me have even better insight into some of the stuff that I'm selling as a sales manager. Not only can I say we do office moves at our company, I can really deep dive into it because now I've experienced it myself. I think it's a pretty valuable tool to have on my belt. It's pretty cool. And the same applies to you if you want to promote. Just like the girl I mentioned above, she learned all that she could, she stood out, and when the time came, I offered her that promotion. Okay, so far we've got communication and building your skill set. What is number 3? Being proactive. A lot of people take the approach in life that when it gets broken, I gotta get it fixed. But if you're proactively being on top of your business, well, you don't have to worry about that because you've already planned for it. When you're able to think and plan at a high level, it will give your bosses a huge sigh of relief. We used to have this thing called the SPG. It was the store presentation guide. And it would give you due dates on when certain presentations were meant to be up in the store months ahead of time. And the great thing about that was, if you were getting the merchandise in early, or if you had merchandise that kind of fit the theme of the SPG, all you would have to do was just go and straighten it up, every day as you did your recovery. But you wouldn't have to touch that promotion or worry about it again for months. Some stores would wait exactly until the deadline, and then they would get it done the week of. But if you've already got it set and your DM's like, man, this looks good, the merchandise is already selling, well, then that proactive approach just freed you up to do other things. And proactive doesn't have to just stop at the floor level either. If you're constantly coming up with ideas and bouncing them off of your manager or your bosses, that's not going to go unnoticed. If you notice that there's other areas of the store that could really use help and you know a way to fix it, speak up. Now, oftentimes the other department heads, they might not be on board with what your ideas are, especially if you're equal and they're like, hey, you stay over there in your lane, this is my lane, but nah. You want to be vocal and talk to your boss about it because you know what? Even if they don't want your help, your idea could be game changing and it's part of what's going to help you get noticed. And then the fourth and final tip I have for you if you want to get promoted is your mindset. You got to think big if you want to climb the ladder and get promoted. And sure, you work for a company that can replace you tomorrow because you're just one piece of the puzzle. But do you see yourself as just one insignificant piece of the company? Or in your head, do you think your contributions truly make a difference? When I'm in a leadership spot, I don't just think of it as this is just my job. I take ownership. This is my company. I learned to think like that when I first got into management. My very first DM told me, John, during the 8 hours that you're manager, you're in charge. You're in complete control. This is your baby. Own it. And I really let that engulf me, not just during the 8 hours of my shift, but at all times. That was my store. Even when I was just the area supervisor, I was always trying to think of ways to improve processes and metrics. Now, part of it's going to depend on what position you're in, and your ideas might not always get accepted, but having that type of vision and mindset is going to help drive you forward. It always has for me. I recently started watching this show called The Good Doctor, and I'm not too far into it, but on one of the episodes, there's a scene between the vice president of the hospital and the head surgeon. Basically, the bosses had told the head surgeon to get help from this other hotshot doctor because they were dealing with a high-profile patient. And the head surgeon took offense to this because, in his head, I used to be the guy. I was the man. I don't need any help. But the current vice president tells him flat out, do you want to be vice president? Do you want my job one day? Or are you going to stay in that same mindset that you're just a lead doctor? And that's exactly how you got to be. Are you going to stay stuck in that same old mindset? Or are you going to get strategic and take ownership? So that's my advice for getting the promotion at work. Communicate, build up your skills, be proactive, and have a winning mindset. So in my last video, I talked about the power of leveraging social media marketing, so go ahead and check that one out. And if you found value in today's video, like and subscribe like all your friends are doing, and I'll see you on the next one.